Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life.
Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I've got my friend Rob Kosack. He is a law enforcement officer in Illinois and a USPSA Grandmaster. We've known each other, at least peripherally, for a few years now. Guy's a solid shooter and a solid guy, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. So real quick, Rob, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
I'm like you said, I'm a police officer. I'm a lieutenant now with a mid-sized agency in Illinois. We got about 140 guys. The shooting wise, I've been a competitor for the last 23 years. USPSA, shot 3-gun, shoot PRS, just kind of all around gun nerd in every way. So kind of just shoot a little bit of everything and have fun with it.
Yeah, it's funny, I think the first match we actually shot together was an IDPA match, not a USPSA match, that little local.
Yep.
I was at Ileta, I think, and we went and we shot a little local there.
Yep. Yeah, you were shooting the staccatos then, I believe.
Yeah. I still like the 2011s. It's I'm just a big fan of 1911s and 2011s in general. I know there's easier guns to maintain, but they're kind of like Harleys. If you set them up right, they'll do you no wrong. If you don't set them up right, you're just asking for trouble.
And almost everybody ends there eventually anyway, because it's the fun guns to shoot. So,
yeah, well, just that trigger, man. It's like, it's the only trigger that actually goes straight to the rear. And you can set it up with such a crisp break and such a short take up and reset. Like it really is like a cheat code,
Yep, agreed. Yeah, I've been shooting, I started 2011s. I shot limited for probably about the first 10 years I was in. So I was shooting STIs back then. Now I'm still shooting 2011s now. I cycled through Glock and what else did I shoot? I shot like Tampos, shot a little bit of everything, but I came back to 2011s. I'm shooting mostly open with 2011s now.
Now, because you've been shooting open a long time, but so I've got a question kind of as it pertains to your LE career and your shooting. Which one came first? Were you a competitive shooter first, or were you law enforcement first?
No, I was a deputy back in 2002 when I first discovered shooting competition. I just never heard of it before. And I was wanting to find a way to shoot more. Started shooting, it was actually an IDPA tactical club who I got started with, shot that for about a year, discovered USPSA, and then just never looked back, as I just found USPSA to be so much more free and fun, being able to shoot your way instead of following the tactical rules. So I stuck with USPSA and just kind of ran with it. I was one of those guys though that early on, I put a lot of time into it. I started reloading right away so I could shoot more. I trained hard for about 10 years and never made it out of B class because I was just doing everything wrong. So I was one of those live fire guys that I would go out. I spent a lot of time, a lot of money out live firing. I did zero dry fire. This is back, 2002 to 10 era. So it wasn't as much of a dry fire world back then. But that's what I was doing. I ended up switching over from limited to production. I made A in production after 1 month once I started dry firing. So it was kind of the what I needed for me. And then I put in a ton of hours, just a lot of hours dry fire, and eventually just worked up from there.
And that's kind of like, I think a lot of people that are more recently into this, especially like from the law enforcement side, don't realize how different the world was back then. Like if if you were a cop back then and you went to a competition, it was really frowned on. Like, it was like, well, that's going to get you killed. That's not what we do. That's nonsense. Like, it was really looked down on, not like it is now.
Well, law enforcement training isn't what it is now, though, either. It was, I mean, law enforcement training back then was standing on the 7-yard line and shooting. And that was, I mean, we went out and we qualified and we did very little else at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, PPC was the big law enforcement competition back then, which, and I'm not knocking it for the kind of competition it is. I mean, there's some skilled people that do that sort of thing, but it doesn't really have a lot of direct correlation to a gunfight.
I've never shot it ever.
It's kind of pseudo bullseye, sort of
Okay.
bullseye with, more supported positions, I guess. And I'm not like, my only exposure to it was through the guys that shot it, that taught at the academy. So I'm not an expert by any means, but their idea of rapid fire is kind of like the bullseye idea of rapid fire. It's like a shot a second. It's not, yeah, it's not the same kind of thing. But there's that. And then like also the information that's available now to people that are coming into shooting, it's just, it wasn't like that back then. Like, there was nothing out there. There was Brian Enos's book and Burkett's DVDs, and that was about it.
Yes. Yep. I bought DVDs and books and all of that way back. But yeah, it was nothing like there is now. It's just a wealth of information available to where guys can jump in now and get good really fast if they just do it smart.
And I didn't compete back then, but I was trying to learn how to train to be a good shooter. And I'd had a little bit of exposure to it through SF. So like, I knew that the training methodology was valuable, right? I wish I competed sooner than I did. But I still remember copying my buddy's VHS set of Jerry Barnhart's burner series. Did you ever see those?
A long time ago.
Yeah. Like, that was like my first like USPSA style training video I ever watched. There's still good stuff in there. I think I've still got them on digit somewhere. I ripped them and saved them on a hard drive.
I lost all my VHS stuff. I didn't copy anything over.
Yeah, but I guess kind of what I'm getting at is like, there's so much information now. Like, it's so readily available to people that if you really care about getting better now, there's almost no excuse not to get better.
Yeah, agree.
But we went on a sidetrack already. You weren't even done introducing yourself. We went down a rabbit hole. So, all right. So you got to B class. What happened after that?
So I got to B class. I eventually was pretty close to wearing out my 2011. I had my one gun, took me through all of that. I had a Lexer back then. And I ended up switching over at the department. We had to carry, I never really competed with my duty gun because we had to carry SIG 229s that were double action only. So it doesn't take very long to dry fire one of those and realize you don't want to compete with that thing. It's with 12-pound trigger pull that's double action. So we ended up, what happened? I think that was about the time they allowed us to start carrying our own weapon if we wanted to provide it. And so I switched to a Glock, and because I was carrying a Glock at that time, and so I started competing with Glocks, and I got a couple of those in 40, and I was still running 40 for minor just because it was I could get brass from pick up brass at the department range and run 40 minor. So I did that for several years, and then I just kind of hit the point where I wasn't nice. Well, I got the point where I felt like I wasn't progressing anymore. I know it's not equipment. Equipment doesn't hold you back, but that's where I was at in my development to where I felt like it was. So I switched over to a Tanfo, fit my hand a lot better. I really liked that thing. I shot it for, I think that's what I made master with. And then I was right on, I think I picked up somebody's open gun and match, and they just let me shoot it. And once I shot it, I was just like, I was just kind of hooked. The speed of everything, and I got my first open gun. The first one I got, what did I have first? I set up some Tanfolios. I had two custom Tanfolios. They were not open guns. They were limited guns converted into open guns, and I ran those for a couple of years. Basically, I ran them until I broke them both, and then ended up going into the 2011s. And I've gone through Limcat, Atlas, I had a custom 2011, and now I'm running two Phoenix training honchos right now. So
Yeah, open is, and I'm not shooting open anymore, but I shot it for a bit. Especially before like limited optics was a thing, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And man, open is just, it's so fast. Like people don't realize, like it with major power factor, those guns really do make a difference. It's like it's like shooting the world's loudest airsoft.
Yep. It's like I always compare it to the SBRs at work. It's like if you better double plug because it's like shooting a 10-inch AR. They're loud and they're violent and they're fun. They're just and open was the push I needed to really. I was always one of those real accurate, real consistent competitors. I could go through and make very little mistakes in terms of accuracy wise, but I needed the push to make my vision faster, and that's what open did for me. It made me realize I can shoot faster. I can develop my eyes to move and track faster.
You know, and that's one of the things I think. So going back to like carryovers to law enforcement from competition, right? Like I had a surprising revelation right about the time I made master class in USPSA. That USPSA had made my CQB better. And it wasn't because it's tactical, because obviously a USPSA stage it's not the same as CQB movement, right? I believe it was because my processing speed had jumped up. I was able 100%. To process visual input a lot faster and more reliably. And it got to where like in the room, it felt like everything was in slow motion because I was used to going so much quicker. You know what I mean?
You had to slow down to keep your guys with you.
Yeah. And I think that's a big benefit that people don't think about. You know, and we get so many people in law enforcement training that want to always mimic the event in the training drill. But if you look at like really successful athletes, they're never just mimicking the event, right? Football players don't just scrimmage. MMA fighters don't just get in the octagon and go all out, right? They have things they do to improve their attributes and their skills that are different than the event. And that's kind of what I think like USPSA, one of the things USPSA can do for you as a cop or as like a guy who carries for self-defense is it's like overspeed training. The pace is so much faster that if you can keep a good mental transmission and dial the pace back down when you need to, it's going to feel so relaxed and comfortable and easy because you're used to going so much quicker. I think there's a lot of merit in that.
And you are still operating at a speed that is so much faster than everyone else. Your slowed down speed is still so much faster. Everybody else watches. It's just like I always kind of relate it to my guys. It's like being an instructor on the firing range. You go out, you talk them through a drill, you demonstrate the drill for them, and you run it at maybe 80% because you want it to be perfect, right? You want to demonstrate the drill perfect, and you want them to be able to see the nuance of what you're doing. But then the guys watching you shoot will think you burned it down, and they think you're shooting real fast and real aggressive. And it's like, no, that's actually very slow, but it's because I've repped this as fast as I can possibly do it. And then now I'm running at a very controlled pace.
You know, and for people that haven't done like competitive shooting, but have done like maybe combat sports or something like that, right? Like it's another analogy I always used to use is because, you know, I was always a martial artist, right? And when I would have to put hands on somebody on the street, unless it was an outlier, unless it was somebody that was actually really good, most of the time I was going about 80% because I knew I could control the situation. And it was more controllable. There was less likelihood of me injuring somebody unintentionally. There was less likelihood of things looking bad on video. But my 80% was like 110% for the other guy. And that's what I tell people they should want in a gunfight. Like you should be going, like you said, about your 80% most of the time, unless it's an outlier. But the other guy should just be not even able to catch up, not even able to get ahead of the power curve at all.
Yep. Then down that rabbit hole a little bit, did you also see in the processing? I mean, you had a lot more real world SWAT experience than I did operating on a much smaller team. But what I found was also moving into to take people down is like I could calmly assess the situation, grab somebody before they even knew what was going on. Whereas I felt like I picked that up through USPSA training more than I did through entry training.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is one of those phrases that the concept has a huge amount of intrinsic value, but the phrase has been overused, and that's the OODA loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fundamental concept for conflict, but I think it's become like this magical buzzword, like saying Betelgeuse 3 times, and all of a sudden you're going to win the fight. Just say OODA loop 3 times, and that's not how it works. But there really is something to that. If I can observe and orient faster than the other person, I've already gone through the decision process and I'm acting, and they're still trying to orient to the situation, right? And I've seen it in gunfights. I've seen it in hand-to-hand conflict, and it's a real thing. The ability to make those decisions rapidly with accuracy makes all the difference in the world.
Yep, I agree. That's exactly the experience I had with it.
So because you're pretty high up on your department now, you're a lieutenant now, and I'm assuming you have some sort of training role at times in your career, at least, right?
Yep. Let's see how I progressed through. I started as a deputy. I transferred to my department, which is city department, back in 2004, and did a couple more years in patrol. Was a detective for almost 9 years after that. During that time, I was a range officer. I was a defensive tactics, active shooter, OC instructor, taser instructor. I just kind of went down that path of where I was doing SWAT. I was involved in a lot of the training that was happening. At that time, we didn't have a training division. So then they came to me and asked me to come out of detectives and just become a full-time training officer for the department. So I did that for about a year. Then I got promoted to sergeant. So I came back out of that role and it wasn't filled. So it went back to empty. So I was a patrol sergeant for 3 years. And then they decided they wanted that training division back. So they opened up a training sergeant spot and I became a training sergeant. So then I was the training sergeant running the range, running most department training for the next 5 years. That takes me up to about a year and a half ago. I got promoted to lieutenant. So now I'm back in patrol again, and we've got a couple guys in training now running the training division.
So how were you able to bring the lessons you learned from competition into the training role for your department? Like, what resistance did you get? How did that work out for you? How did that happen?
Obviously started with firearms. I wouldn't say I was given free reign, but I was given a lot of leeway with setting up drills for the entire department. But a lot of it had to be dumbed down. Is a bad way of saying it, but you know what I'm saying. It had to be simplified very much for the entire department courses. But where I could really do almost anything was within the SWAT team. So within the SWAT team, we could really run whatever drills we wanted. We could, we got much more training time. We could be out there and set up just whatever we wanted to run. So I was able to do more with them. I will say where I was unsuccessful was getting other people to come compete. I tried it was working with the recruits to the senior guys, to the SWAT team, to whoever. I was always trying to get people to come out. I'd offer to take them with me, and I got a few people to come out and try it. And generally I ran into the problem of cops don't like it when they get outshot by civilians, and and a little bit of ego kicks in, or they just don't want to put in the time because the department pays them to shoot, and this is their own time, their own money, their own ammo. So those issues made it hard to get other officers to come out and shoot. Now that I'm out of training and done with it, I do have there's a few guys that are coming out and shooting, so making some good advancements.
I remember a conversation I had when I was a boss on SWAT, and some guys are talking about, like, they played high school basketball, right? And they're talking about basketball. And this is a training day. And I'm trying to run training for the squad. And I'm like the training sergeant at the time. And I finally looked at him and said, you know what? Instead of reliving the sport we were bad at in high school, why don't we try to get good at the athletic ability we need for what we're actually doing now? Like, you know, and it's kind of like, I mean, these are the same guys that wanted to play basketball on training days as like their workout. It's like their PT. And I'm like, guys, you're not a basketball player. You're a SWAT guy. This is an athletic job. Work on the athletic skills for this job, for what you're doing now, right? Don't try to relive what you did in high school thinking it somehow will make you better at this, because it won't.
Yeah. Did you within your team, did you see a lot of changes in just the general training schedule from the time you started to the time you came out?
I did. Some better, some worse. And I want to say too that my last story notwithstanding, we had a really good team. Like I'm not knocking the team. You know, I had frustrations like everybody else does, but we had some guys on that team that were incredibly solid individuals. You know, could have done that sort of job at any level for any military unit or police department if you gave them the right orientation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was always like, I'll give you a good example. When I was running the training, I asked for a 3-month operators course for the new guys coming on, thinking I would get maybe a month and a half if I asked for 3 months. And they actually gave me 3 months. So I had 3 months with these guys doing nothing but shooting in CQB with a little bit of breaching and stuff smattered in, driving, right? So that was amazing. Like we could get these kids spun up really well. So that was the good. One of the bad was not so much with the chain of command on the team, the chain of command above the team, fighting to keep the training schedule realistic. Like at one point they wanted to change it to where everybody on each squad had different days off, which makes training as an entire squad impossible, right? So that's like the negative. So like there was positives and negatives.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a whole different world than what I had to deal with. I mean, I've only ever been part of part-time teams. It's like our team for the city, and then also I was on the Elias team, which is a multi-jurisdictional. But I mean, you know Elias, you came from Illinois,
Yeah.
but the SRT side of that, I was on that for a long time too. So training with 2 different teams, but getting to see the dynamics of a large multi-jurisdictional team versus a much smaller but tight-knit city team. It was just interesting to see the differences of team structure and how they end up working together.
You know, I'm always, I have been, I should say that, not always, because there's a wide variety in skill levels and abilities from team to team, right? You know, I've been exposed to a lot of them now that I'm doing this stuff as a retired instructor. But I have been very impressed at the abilities of some of the part-time teams I've trained. Like there's some part-time teams out there that are solid because they have the right culture, they have the right attitude. They're working on stuff on their own, not just waiting for their 2 or 4 days a month or whatever it is, right? And then I've worked with a couple of full-time teams that I was disappointed in their abilities because it was kind of that old school mentality of I'm only going to do what the department pays me for and what the department gives me, and I'm not going to push, and you know what I mean? That assembly line worker mentality. If I do too much, then we'll have to do too much every time.
Yep.
Right. So it's just kind of a mixed bag. You know, I see some really good and I see some really bad.
Yeah. So now that you are out of all of that world, do you stick to a similar training schedule as to what you've worked for the last 20 years, or do you see a drastic change?
For me personally, so it's changed. My fitness routine is more about longevity and trying to minimize the damage from all the injuries I've had than it used to be. I will probably never run a long distance again because I don't see any reason to, right? I still do sprint stuff. I still do sprints. I still do plyometrics. I work the heavy bag. You know, I go to the dojo, I lift, but even my lifting is like more like kettlebell stuff and full range of motion stuff with cables and like, you know, more like functional, but not functional in the sense of like clean and jerks and kipping pull-ups, but like functional, like, you know, really complete ranges of motion, kind of the old school lifts, and trying to save my joint health and still stay fit. So that's one way it's changed. As far as like the shooting side of things and like, you know, the combatives or martial arts or whatever you want to call it side of things, I can train more now than I used to, which is nice. I just have to be a little smarter about it. That's all.
I look forward to that day.
No, it's nice. Retirement is not a bad thing. You know, I think there's the cliche of the cop that only lives 5 years after they retire, but that's because they didn't have anything but the job. You know, if their social circle was the job, their whole life was the job. And I'm not going to lie, there was a bit of an adjustment for me. It not so much when I retired from the Army, because I got out of 20th group before I retired from CPD, but I was still on SWAT. So it was almost like I just kind of segued from one role to a similar role, and it didn't really hit me yet, you know. And then when I retired from Chicago, there was about a year of an adjustment where it really was like a bit of a, you know, okay, I'm not that guy anymore. This is the guy I am now. But when I settled into that, I have no complaints. Like it's a good life.
It's good to hear.
So, but I want to circle back around to something you were talking about a second ago, because this is something I've been thinking about kind of a bit lately. Because, you know, there's this push on the internet that all law enforcement training should be hit factor, right? And I don't know if you've seen any of those discussions. It's like the people that, you know, there's like, and it's a good thing that there are a lot of cops now in the competition. Like, that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, 100%. But a lot of them have developed kind of this stance on the internet that everything should be hit factor for law enforcement, no matter what. And kind of my thought on it, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is that if it was logistically possible to do, that would be fantastic. But I've run recruit class firearms training, and trying to run a bunch of people that have never really shot a gun before through hit factor stuff when you're all on the line and you can't run people one at a time is pretty difficult. Like that's not really feasible that way. Now on a SWAT team, I think it's phenomenal. Like I think it'd be great.
I think a lot of it comes down to how many days of training you're getting with those people. Like for us, we get a couple full days a year on the range. I mean, between rifle, pistol, you know, getting everything covered. A couple full days is all we get. So we introduce hit factor in some drills we do, but it's very minimal, just because most of them aren't going to understand it. Most of them aren't going to care enough to really get into it. But we do it as kind of to switch it up, get them out of line drills, get them out of individual scenario type drills that have no time basis whatsoever. So we do it to push time with them. I definitely, within the teams, we do a lot more hit factor. Yeah. But at least for our agency anyway, we aren't to the point where we're doing any more than one, maybe two within an entire training day that are hit factor, just simply because of the time it takes. We're running, you know, we run about 10 usually in the class, 10 to 12. So everybody else is standing there watching, which I actually like that factor of it also, though, is to add the added stress of making it, instead of them all standing in a line shooting at the same time, they actually have the pressure of, hey, everybody's watching me. And I think that's one of the excellent things about the sport also, is getting cops out there and shooting, or civilian concealed carry, whatever. But you can't reproduce that stress in many other types of shooting that you get from, you're up there on the line, everybody's watching you, they hold up the buzzer, and you know, you get the beep. So
in my opinion, that's more stress than a gunfight. Like without a doubt, because a gunfight's just a fight, right? You're in the fight and the fight's over and you don't get style points. But at a match, the scores are up on the internet forever. Everybody's watching you. Yeah, it's more stressful for me, for sure.
Yeah. And that's one thing too, the more you the class up, I think the worse that gets. It's that then you feel obligated to perform. So
yes.
it adds a layer of stress. Like it's only in your own head because nobody else probably even cares. But but you expect that, hey, I should be performing at this level. So
Yeah.
to me it's been good. It's a driving force that makes you train, right? And then if you don't perform well, it's probably because you weren't training enough. So it works good for some, and I've seen it run other people out of the sport. So
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot with cops and soldiers. Like you said before, like that whole thing of, if I don't perform well, I'm a SWAT guy, or I'm in special forces, or I'm a SEAL, or I'm whatever, and then I don't perform well. I think it drives some people away from it because they're not willing to divorce themselves from that ego, and that desire to appear a certain way rather than just the desire to get better.
yeah, yeah, you definitely. I think in all of our fields, whether it's military, law enforcement, competing, you have to enjoy training, or you're never going to really excel. You have to enjoy the drive.
Yeah, well, and I think I was actually just talking about this with the one I had right before you today. He's a really good guy. He was a pro MMA fighter before becoming a cop. Solid dude. But we were talking about the fact that we were training hard before we moved into law enforcement. So a lot of cops don't have the same attitude about training. And I think that if you've done anything at a high level, the training kind of is the thing. Like, it's not just the event. It's not just the match. The training is the real thing, and the match is how you test it. And it's the actual act of training is what you have to love.
Yep.
To be good at anything, I think.
Yep, I agree. It goes with everything. Shoot, it even goes. The gym is the same way. If you're going to put in the work in the gym, it's like it's not about what you're getting out of it. It's about the time you spend in there. You enjoy it.
Yeah, the process itself. The journey has to be the destination, right? The process has to be the goal.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just not going to get there.
Yep.
So back to the logistical thing for training, right? Because I think it's always this balancing act, or it was for me, right? Because I've trained foreign troops in the Army, and I've trained cops when I was on CPD, and it's like there's this ideal way you would like things to be done, and then you run up into the actual logistical demands of doing things that way, and the whole hit factor thing. I think what you said is probably the right way to go about it. Like, obviously a SWAT team, you can do it. But a recruit class, like, it would just be hard to get too much of that in, I would think.
Yeah, and I don't know about. It sounds like you probably got a lot more time with your recruits up there than what we get. Our field training process probably runs 6 months total. So the in-house portion is like 3 weeks. So we get maybe a couple of days with them on the range. So we're trying to cover safe movement with a weapon. A lot of our people now have never even shot a gun before. It's just the generation of people we have coming in now. So yeah, we're trying to cover so much. It would probably not be beneficial for us to be working hit factor with them at that level. We usually, when I came out, the way we do it, usually by the time we got done, we'd have one drill and introduce it to, and that would be part of my spiel, trying to sell them on, hey, what you do here is very minimal compared to what you should be doing to really train. Come to some matches, try it out, see if you like it, and go down that path. But
and that's the other thing too, is I think people, if you look at locals as training, right? Like, no different than going to the BJJ dojo and rolling. You know what I mean? It's a really cost-effective way to get some training in. Like, it doesn't cost that much for the amount of things you're getting in. You're getting drills that were designed by someone else that you didn't see before that day, that you have to shoot, with very minimal rehearsal beforehand. You only get to shoot them once.
Yep.
It's a great little pressure test you can do on a regular basis for not that much money.
Yep. It's very cost-effective training. To the point where I've tried to sell departments on, hey, just give the guys ammo. It's like, you're not paying them. This is cheap. This is very cheap. It's like, let them take their equipment, let them go shoot a match, and just provide them the ammo. That will get some of them there. And I haven't been successful with that part of it yet. I know some agencies that do that though.
Yeah, there's a few agencies down here close to where I'm at now that have marksmanship teams, and that I think is pretty cool.
It is
a group of guys that goes to matches together. The department gives them ammo and gives them a little bit of practice time, and that I think is a step in the right direction for sure.
Yep.
And it's, you just got to get the buy-in, right? I mean, you're not gonna. It's so hard to incentivize the people that aren't of that bent already. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain kind of person that likes to better themselves and work hard on stuff. And I don't know how you reach the ones that aren't already kind of predisposed towards that.
Yeah, and it really doesn't take. I mean, you don't need to get everybody all in, right? You just need a few, and then those are going to be the ones who push the rest and raise the bar for your entire group. Unless you're just very fortunate, you're not going to have an entire group, whether it's a SWAT team, a PD, or whatever, a shift. You're not going to have everyone be high performers. But the more high performers you have, the more that breeds it into everyone else.
Well, and the higher their performance becomes. You know what I mean? Like, when they see somebody who's at a truly high skill level, regardless of what it is, right, whether it's shooting or anything else, and it's something that they see on a regular basis, it changes their perspective of what good is. Like, I still remember, I thought I knew what good was, and then I went to my first match, and Les Kismartoni, right?
I've run into him way back.
Yeah. So Les was at my first match, and he curb stomped me and stole my lunch money. Like, it was bad. And it was the first time I'd been exposed in person to someone at that level. Like, I'd seen video of, the top shooters, right? But it's one thing to see it on video. It's something else to shoot the same course of fire alongside with them and realize how far behind you are, And I think that exposure does a lot to motivate people too. Like, once they realize what good actually is.
Yep, I had the same experience. Mine was a master class. It was actually a cop from another agency that was instrumental in getting me, pushing ahead early on. He was a master class limited shooter, Doug Kimney. And first time I saw him shoot, it was just like, it was at a speed that I hadn't ever thought was possible. And, that started me down the path of realizing, hey, I'm going to push at this until I can do that. And, ended up going way down the road, but that's what it took. It took seeing someone else in person that could perform, and then being able to compare, what is he doing different than what I'm doing. And it was everything at that point when you're comparing a B class shooter to an M. But it's eye opening, and it takes that for people to really understand, because you can especially we both know cops. It's like, you can talk to cops about shooting, and their reality of what is good is so far removed from what we view as good. They think, a qualification score means something, when it's like, to a competitor, it's like, if you aren't qualifying 100% easily, then there's a problem, right? It's like, you're not really a competitor. So it's just a different way of looking at the world.
Most law enforcement qualification courses aren't even good sobriety tests. I passed the one for Chicago blindfolded. I just had somebody line me up so the natural point of aim was right. And that means your qual is not hard enough. That's what that means.
Yeah, but for most places though, it's a state minimum qual. That's all it is it's the bare minimum of, can this person carry a gun, right? Is what they're wanting.
Well, people misunderstand it, right? The qual doesn't exist for the officer. The qual exists to indemnify the agency. It's a liability issue. That's all it is, right? So they can say this person's, the box has been checked, they've been signed off on, they were safe to carry a gun. It's not even remotely the bare minimum for being competent with a gun. Like, it's not even close. And some calls are harder than others, obviously, but they're all really just for liability, no matter how difficult they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, you could say that about a lot of law enforcement training. Really, it's set up to by someone who doesn't really know training for the purpose of ensuring there is a bare minimal standard. That's
Oh, and then here's another one that used to drive me crazy is when brass would conflate qualification with training. Like, no, the test is not the training. Like, that's not the same thing. Like, you're not working on anything when you're being tested. You're simply being tested at what you can already do or not do.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, early on when I started with my current agency, the qual was the training. It was you went out and you qualified, and that was your shooting. They do, you know, a night one and a day one, but that was it. It wasn't. I mean, we weren't anywhere close to spending hours or like our current where it's a full day every time you go out. But it's like I said, we have definitely progressed. But I mean, there's always room for improvement.
So here's one for you. If you were giving advice to a young cop coming on the job, how much and what type of training would you recommend they do for their shooting? Like, what dry fire regimen? And not somebody that wants to be an M or a GM, just somebody who wants to be, you know, say, I would say a good standard for like to be really good with a gun by cop standards would be like B class, right?
Yep. I always told my guys that if I could get all of my range, just my range cadre to be B class shooters, I would be thrilled. I would be super happy.
Well, I've said this before, and I really kind of stand by it. In my experience in special forces, most people in special forces are B class shooters. The ones that are higher than that also compete, are just amazingly talented people. You know what I mean? But people think, you know, oh, you know, master, grandmaster. And yes, like that's a level of skill you should aspire to if you care about your craft. But you take 12 guys who are B-class shooters and can work well together and have them come through a house, that is a scary thing. That is not anything to sneeze at by any means. Matter of fact, Ron Avery, you know who Ron Avery was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ron Avery said that he thought B-class was like the black belt of USPSA. And I think he was pretty much right. Like that's about right. You know, there's still levels above it, you know what I mean? But that's a level where you are truly competent across the board.
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way, but yes, that's accurate.
You know, so like what would you say to the guy coming on the job? What would be your training prescription for him so that he could be at that level of competence within a couple of years without having to go as far down the rabbit hole as we have?
What I tell my guys is I tell them frequency as I make it convenient for yourself. And if I tell the way I ended my training with all the recruits was I said, if you would put in 5 minutes 4 times a week, you literally will be better than 90% of the people on the range. That's why I think if you're only looking for bare minimal standards of performance, it's the frequency of the gun in your hand, being super comfortable with it, and getting your index to the point where you can look at something, the sights move to it. That's I mean, once you get that, I mean, the rest of it will just, I mean, reflex will take over after that, really. So that's what I always tell my people is start. It's like get yourself a routine and follow the routine. That's a lot of what I did. I mean, I know you've probably heard Steve Anderson's book. I just took a lot of his drills and I would just rep it and rep it and rep it and just rep that stuff until you can't. I mean, until you can go. You know, you can't go any faster, and just keep doing that. And you just
his daily dozen are really good. Just simple dry fire routine. Like there's other ways to do things that are more creative and a little more advanced. But his daily dozen is a good solid, like if you told people to do that and nothing else, they'd be pretty good after a while.
Yep. And so I sold a lot of that stuff and just simple. Take these things, draw to a simulated 10-yard target, draw to a 7-yard target, do a couple draws where you're moving. And then if you really put your time into it, turn all of your dry fire into moving. And then it directly carries over to everything. It's like, then it carries over to law enforcement. It carries over to tactical. It's because then once you're moving, it's like, then you just slow your shooting pace down to what's controllable for the speed you want to move.
What sort of live fire prescription would you give the new kid coming on? Like, how often do you think they should live fire? Apart from what the department gives them, like, what would you tell an ambitious young cop who's kind of wanting to be, like I said, wanting to be good, but not necessarily wanting to be an M or a GM?
I would still tell, unless they're talking about competing USPSA, I would tell them you dry fire is all the time. If you shoot once or twice a month is enough. That's back when I was really tight on ammo, that's about how much I shot. Until then, as soon as I got into reloading, obviously I changed all that and spent a ton of money down that road. But for somebody, for a competitor, obviously they're going to want to do it more.
Yeah.
But for a non-competitor, really probably once a month I think would get them by.
Yeah, what I've been telling people kind of with the same question in my classes is if they can dry fire 15 to 30 minutes 4 times a week and live fire a couple times a month for about 200 rounds, they'll get pretty good pretty fast. Like,
oh yeah. I think beyond your move beyond B at that pace.
Yeah, if you keep it up for long term, yeah, absolutely. But I'm also thinking about getting them, like, some people want to get that base level of skill quickly and then kind of maintain it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I try not to judge somebody else's priorities as long as they want to be good at their craft. Like when I teach my civilian classes, I tell them it's not up to me to tell them how good they need to be, but I can give you the info on how to judge it and how to decide, make an intelligent decision for yourself. Because not everybody can have the same priorities. There's a whole level of participation thing, like Steve Anderson talks about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's got the same amount of time. Like, I'm retired. I get up in the morning and throw on that ACE VR system and do virtual dry fire for 2 hours every morning because I can, right? But not everybody can do that. And it's okay that they can't do that. They may still want to be as good as they can get with the time they have,
I just picked up the ACE. It's interesting.
I like it a lot, man. I really do. It's pretty much, except for a little bit of just, weapons handling stuff with my real gun, it's pretty much replaced my dry fire otherwise.
Yeah, I just picked up the I messed up my hand a little bit earlier this year, and so I couldn't grip as good as I liked for a while. So I picked up the PCC for a little bit, and I've been playing with that. And I just got one for the ACE, and I think it's progressed in the PCC faster than I would have been without it.
Which PCC controller did you get?
Shoot,
that's 77 Creative or whatever he calls himself.
I think that that's it.
Yeah. I bought one of those. It's good, man. I like it. It's just so slightly different for optic height from my actual PCC.
Higher or lower?
It's a little bit higher. Just a touch.
I'm using a pretty high optic, so for mine it wasn't bad. For mine, it's the trigger movement is a lot different than my trigger, but it's some shooting. What is that? Hyperfire. So
yeah.
But I'm still using a Franken gun PCC anyway. It's my PCC right now. I ordered a Mean Arms. Won't come in obviously for a while, but I've got it's actually an SPR set up as a department simunition gun way back in the day for us. We had MP5s, and the MP5 conversion kit for a simunition kit would work with an AR9. So I set up a one way back then, and so that is what I'm using as a PCC right now. So
nice.
It runs. It's not ideal, but it is what it is until I upgrade. So.
Yeah, no, I enjoy PCC. I haven't been shooting it as much lately, but I shot a match with it last weekend. And it's, people like here's a training point, right? And I first got this from Frank Proctor years ago because I was asking him what percentage of time did he spend on rifle versus pistol. And so this is taking out of the equation infantry length and further engagements. Okay, we're talking about just 100 yards and ends. Okay, like urban or CQB distance engagements with a rifle, our competition with the PCC. He was of the opinion that really, as long as you're conversant with the weapon's handling and the movement, you hardly ever have to actually shoot the carbine. If you keep getting better at the pistol, you'll get better at the carbine. You've got to do enough to the manipulations are very different. The movement's very different. And yes. I'm not talking about once the holdovers start to take into effect, once you get out past 100 yards, right?
Yeah.
But anything close and fast, I think that's pretty much true. I don't think you need to practice a whole lot with the carbine if you practice a ton with the pistol.
Yeah. From what I found I've probably got 3 months into PCC right now. I found that my movement coming from shooting a pistol pretty high level, my movement with the rifle sucked. But even with all the years of doing SWAT and everything else, I thought I was pretty decent, but until I competed with the carbine and I realized just manipulating the gun around, moving a stage with the PCC, it's like that's where I had a lot of room for growth. Was figuring out the movement of, it's like I can zip around with a pistol and get things done. At this point I probably still can engage targets even at distance faster with my pistol than my carbine or the PCC, but the movement of getting gun on target was what was lagging. So I'm gradually working through that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. For a USPSA stage, unless you're at PCC Nats where there might be targets out to 100, right? But for a regular USPSA match,
I haven't shot one of those yet.
Oh man, I'll tell you a funny story about a partially obscured swinger at 75 yards in a minute. It's funny at my expense. So, but it seems like the shooting isn't the hard part with the PCC. If you're a good shot with a pistol, you'll be accurate with the PCC, right? But the movement becomes so much more technical because you're trying to maneuver that thing around walls and obstacles, and it's a different kind of challenge, and I like it. All right, so 75-yard swinger, right? This was 2019 maybe, PCC Nationals, and there was a stage where you shot a bunch of targets between 10 to 35 yards, a lot of movement. And then the last thing you engaged was a mini popper at 75 that activated a top-only swinger behind steel hardcover at 75. And in retrospect, I know exactly what I did wrong. I shot that like I was shooting 5.56. Well, 5.56 gets out to 75 yards a whole lot faster than 9mm does. I led that like I was shooting 5.56. I shot it at 3 times. There was not one hit on it, not one.
Trailed it.
Yeah. I did the math later with Max Leograndes, who's dude, he could do the math in his head for this. He was doing trigonometry in his head, doing sine wave calculations on the swinger. And basically what he came up with was you had to shoot when the target was completely hidden behind the steel hardcover. You had to shoot before you could even see the target to hit it.
Wow.
So I missed it twice. Missed it actually 3 times. I put 3 on it. Well, 3 at it, I should say.
Yeah, and that would bring up a whole different discussion on stage. What's realistic stages and what's a real test and what gets beyond, because it's once you kill somebody's stage there, it's well, somebody gets a lucky hit on it, they're pulling way ahead on a stage like that.
Yeah.
That one target just separated everybody.
Yeah, and it comes into play too, like you said. And I get it. I probably should have known the ballistics for the 9mm. I'm not disputing that, right? But I spent my whole life on 5.56, and I had what felt like 5.56 in my hand.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know if that's a valid test or not. I know it was an interesting story, and it was was kind of funny. Like I had to laugh at myself when I did it, especially because, man, I hit that mini popper with no problem at all. Same distance, just went bing, and it went down. I'm like, I got this. And then, but in fact, I did not have it.
Other than, beyond 50, do you find much difference between shooting your 5.56 and your 9mm carbines?
At like the distance for like a normal USPSA match? No.
Yeah. I don't even think about it. I just shoot it the same.
Yeah. I just shoot it exactly the same, which is one of the reasons why I think it's great training for like SWAT guys and stuff like that, because at that sort of distance, you're getting the same effect, same training effect.
Yep. If anything, I think the 9 recoils more.
Oh, it definitely recoils more. It's a little snappier.
Yep.
Unless you got one of those fancy delayed blowback JP things.
Not yet.
All right, my friend. Well, we're coming up on an hour, so I should probably think about wrapping this up. But I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a good conversation, and it's been too long since we talked. It's been a while.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a good time. I haven't talked to you in probably been a few years now.
Yeah, probably been at least a couple of years. But I'm glad you're doing well up there. Glad you got promoted. Congratulations. Stay safe up there, and keep smoking the USPSA matches for sure.
Yeah, so get my hours swapped back around where I'm awake again, and I'll get back into a little bit harder core. I'm shooting a couple sectionals here in August and October, but that's really all I'm getting in this year in terms of beyond locals, just because it's much more difficult when you're awake all night. So.
Well, if you ever make it down to a match in Texas, man, let me know. I got room here. You could come crash. We'll go shoot a match and eat some barbecue and catch up a little bit.
All right. I may take you up on this sometime. I'd love to hit the Dragons Cup sometime. So.
Oh, dude, that's such a good match. Matter of fact, I think you can see it right up there. There's my Dragons Cup trophy right up there on top of the gun safe.
Oh, very nice.
Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, I only beat the geezers. So I just beat the other old dudes. That's all.
Hey, winning is winning.
All right, brother. Well, I hope everybody else enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Take care. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, all that other good nonsense I have to say to make Instagram and YouTube and all the other socials happy. And I will talk to everybody next time.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.